day 18. It is Wednesday, February 12th, and this is our do now today. And today we are looking at the slope of different lines. Yesterday we introduced this just briefly. We only looked at maybe a few problems. So we are going to cover this more in depth today. Before I go over the problems in the do now, I actually want us to pull out a page for notes. We're going to revisit this in about 5 minutes because I want to make sure that we have a little guide to look at. So even if you're not done, put it to the side, and I am going to title my page for 1, and we're in Unit 2. We are nearing the end of Unit 2. We don't have too many more things to learn about, so that's good. We're getting to the part where we're just going to review lots of things. So this is our day 18 notes. This is our first page of notes. And we're going to title this page of notes just the same way that this worksheet is titled. I'm going to write finding slope from a line. Or you know what, let's just write finding slope. Because there's multiple ways to do it, even without a line. Finding slope. Now, specifically, when we're looking at a line to find slope, like on this worksheet here, we always want to look from left to right, just like we're reading. So we're going to go from the point that is closer to the negative side of our graph, and then we go over to the right to the next point, more towards the positives. So what I'm going to do on my page of notes is I am going to just draw a little line like this. It doesn't matter if it's lined up just like mine, doesn't have to be perfect, just a little line. And now I'm going to draw 2 random dots on it like this. And under this line, I'm going to write part to right. And just as a reminder, when we are looking at slope, and there's kind of a hint on all the problems on the worksheet here, what is slope in a different way of saying it using the R words? Rise over run. Good. So whenever we're doing this line, finding slope, we're going to start from the left point. So our first one is over here, and we start by counting the rise. So when we are counting the rise, one of my favorite ways to do that is, again, starting from left to right. If the second point is higher, then we start here and we go up to count the rise. So I'm going to label this as my rise. Let's say count the rise. And from where we go when we count the rise, we then go over to where that second point is and we count the run. Whatever the numbers are for rise and run, if you put them in a fraction, that gives us our slope. Now, if we have a line that's tilted differently like this, I'll draw 2 more points. Like that. When we find the slope of a line that's tilted down like this, we're still going to start from left to right. But this time, when I am looking at the left side of this line, it's the higher point that comes first. So when we count the rise here, we would be going down with our line. Then we would go over to the right for our run. Now, if we go down with our rise, what does that mean about the type of number we're going to get? Would it be a positive or a negative?
Negative.
Negative. Good. So let's also label these as we've got a negative here. This will be a negative slope because it's going down. And on our first line, we drew a positive slope because it's going up. So here's just a few notes about a reminder how we do this worksheet. I'll let you guys finish writing this if it is something that you find helpful and want in your notes. And then we're going to go back to this worksheet and check our answers. See how we did. People still right, and I'm going to pause this while we finish that up. So let's now look at that worksheet. And we'll start on number 1. So who feels confident that they have got the correct slope for number 1? Does anybody think they could guide me through how to find it?
Aren't you gonna go up?
See, go up. Do you mean like
Where 3, -3 is?
-3 on the x-axis? And then this is what you mean when you say go up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're starting left to right, our first point is the higher one. That's where we're going to start counting. We're going left to right. This is the first point. So starting from here, Lisa, how do I find my rise?
Down.
Go down. So I'm going to just trace down until I get to the same height of that second point on the line. Right there. So there's my rise.
W.
1. Let's count it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so my rise is 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it +4 or is it -4?
Negative.
-4. Good. Now, how do we know it was negative instead of positive?
Because the line's right next to the negative.
The line's right next to the negative?
Or it's going down.
It's going down. Yes, that's what I needed. It's going down from the first point. Since our rise went down, our rise is negative. So where do I go from there to find my run?
Count over to the 1.
Yes. So I stopped here. I found my rise. Now I'm just going to count over 1, 2, 3. And that's going to be my run. 3. You had it backwards. That's okay. We're learning.
The -3/4.
I gotcha. Okay, so we have a rise of -4, a run of 3. What does that make our slope?
-4/3.
-4/3. So that would be our answer. -4/3. That makes sense to everybody?
Yeah, I gotta get it in my mind that I'm not going over to that 5. I always gotta, that's what's throwing me off.
Now,
I don't
you
wanna go over.
could still do it that way if you wanted. I can
No,
show you.
I wanna do it the right way, but that's where my mind is stuck thinking, cause that dot's right there, I'm supposed to go to the 5, but I'm
Right.
supposed to go down, and that's what I gotta get in my head.
I get
Go
you.
down. Yeah, don't change it, I'm just trying to get situated in here.
I did the
Now,
opposite.
You did the opposite one?
Yeah, I put the line where the 5 is,
Mm-hmm.
and then I put the line down.
Okay, so you did like that.
No,
What'd you do?
going where that dot is,
Mm-hmm.
and going that way.
Like this?
That's how I did it.
Okay,
And
so
I went down.
I do want to show you guys that this does still work. This is a right way to do it. It still is a right way. Even though we normally go do our rise first, as long as you're able to recognize that since I'm moving left to right, that the first line I drew here is a run instead of a rise, you can still do that. You could just say, okay, I went over 3, so that's my run since I went to the right. I just found my run first. And then from my 3, I went down 5. And since I went down 5, or not 5, 4, my bad, I went down 4, so my rise is -4. You would still get the same numbers. It still works perfectly fine that way. It's just being able to recognize that up and down is our rise, left to right is our run. So either order works. It just might be a little bit easier to mix it up and put the wrong numbers if you do your run first and accidentally write it for your rise. Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the second one, number 2. Which point should we start from first? Yes, my x is -3 right here. From left to right, this one comes first. So let's do our rise first. Where am I going to be going, up or down? Up, good. So I see that my second point falls here. I'm going to draw a line going up to where my second point is. And let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went up 5. So what's my rise? 5. Good. And how do I find my run?
Go to the
Yes, I'm just going to count over this way. I've got 1,
5 again.
3, 4, 5 again. Okay, so what would our slope be?
5/5.
5/5. So I'm going to write 5/5. And this is a perfectly acceptable answer, but can we simplify it?
Yes.
We can. What could our simplified slope be? 1/1.
Okay.
Good. 1/1. Either one is correct. Here, Tasha, I'll pause. Okay, so our slope is 5/5 or 1/1. You could also just write your slope as 1 if you wanted. That's all the same answer. Any questions on number 2? We got that one. Can we try number 3? Okay, let's look at number 3. Which point should I start from?
This one,
My first one, what's that one?
on the 2.
On the 2. It lines up with 2 on the X and on the Y, actually. So from this first point, do I go up or down? I'm going to go up.
3.
1, 2, 3.
Over 1.
Good. Up 3 over 1.
So is it 3 over 1?
So it's 3 over 1.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Jesus. Okay, I think I'm getting it.
You good, good. And I think sometimes stuff like this, especially when you start we've been working with equations for a while, and then to completely switch gears and look at something more visual, where we're just counting 2 numbers. As silly as it seems, it can feel a lot harder to switch gears and do something different. But the more we do it, it will start to make sense. So that's good that it's making sense for you. So our slope would be 3 over 1 for number 3. All right. Can we do number 4? Let's do it. Okay. Which point should I start from?
In the top.
The top point. Good. Now, do I need to go up or down? Down a long way. Okay. Count all these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we went down 10. So what would our rise be? Good, negative 10. Perfect. And from where we stopped, go ahead, Jenny.
Over 1.
Over 1. So that's our run. So what's our slope?
Negative.
Good. Negative 10 over 1. Perfect.
The one don't have to be negative, even though it's over on the side.
So the reason our 1 is positive is because we are running to the right. Whenever we go over to the right, it's going to give us a positive 1. And we know that only one of these can be negative, because if I had negative 10 over negative 1, that would cancel out. It would turn into positive 10, right? Because a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. And we can tell by looking at this line, since it's tilting downward, that we need to have a negative number for our slope. So if I put negative 1 for my run and negative 10, that would not give us the correct answer. We just need one of our numbers to be negative. I'm gonna pause this. All right, so let's go back to, we just finished number 4. Let's look at number 5. So number 5 is a big one. It's a great big one. Now the points I gave you were super far away, but you could use different points if you wanted to. Let's use the points I gave you though, just for fun. Let's see, which point am I messing with first?
Oh,
My top one, good. That's from the left side. And am I going to trace my rise down or up?
I'm gonna go down.
I'm going to go down.
Which is 12.
12, good. There are
12 over.
12 down. And then over
12 again.
12 again. Good. So if I went down 12, what's my rise?
Negative 12.
Perfect. Negative 12. Over 12, what's my run?
Positive.
Positive 12. So what is my slope?
You can simplify it though.
Yes, we will simplify it.
Negative 12 over 12.
Perfect.
We got simplified.
Absolutely. So we have negative 12 over 12. And what would our simplified form be?
Negative 1.
Negative 1 over 1. If you didn't write it over 1, it would still be right. I'm just in the habit of making our slope a fraction. I'm doing it so much. Anytime you get the same number over itself, it always can simplify down to 1/1. There is number 5. Let's look at number 6 now. Which point should I start from?
3.
My 3.
It's the 1. I mean, it's, yeah, but it's right.
Yeah, 1, 3. Here, I can even label that. 1, 3. And where should I go from my first point?
Up.
Good. We went up how many?
3.
Let's see. 1,
2, 3.
2. Just 2 here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just went from
Oh, I'm
3
sorry.
to
Yeah,
4,
I
5.
I was counting the first.
That's okay. That's okay. So we have a rise of how many?
2.
2.
1, 2. Oh, 2.
And from this point, how many over do I go?
2.
1. This is just 1.
Keep on.
Just 1 right here.
Right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My eyes, I keep on looking.
No,
at
I know you just had that thing yesterday. That has to be tough. These are really close together. Sometimes that makes it a little tougher. But yes, we go up 2 and then we go over 1 for our run. So what is our slope?
2.
2/1. Good. 2/1.
My eyes always want to go to the numbers.
That's okay. You're not
That's
alone
where I
on
get
that.
confused at, yeah.
That's all right. Okay, guys. That was our do now. We did some slope stuff. How are we feeling about finding slope compared to yesterday?
A little bit better.
A little bit better. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's good. So we are still going to do some more practice with this, just to make sure we feel a whole lot better. But there's some practice problems. We can always look back at this. Keep this in your folder. And for now, I am going to put this to the side. And we're going to go back to the notes we started. Now, I just took this away and I didn't ask, does anybody need to see this worksheet still? Or can I officially move it? Okay, so we took notes earlier this morning about finding slope. This was just exactly what we did on that worksheet, where we start by counting the rise from left to right, and then we count the run. If our line tilts upwards, we have a positive slope. If it tilts downwards, we have a negative slope. I'm going to show you one more way to find slope. And this is going to be the last thing I teach you for Unit 2, I promise. Very last thing. And then we get to just review for a while. So, one more way to find slope. Some people love this method and prefer it over the counting. Some people don't love this method, okay? But we are going to get real good at it. So I'm going to draw a line. There's our first method. Here is another method. I'm going to give you a formula. And it might look scary, but I promise you it's not too bad once we break it down. So I am going to write slope equals, and in parentheses I'm writing m. M equals, this is the same thing. And I am going to need to pull something up real fast. We are going to have a fraction here. And on top, I'm writing y2 a little 2 under the y right here. Minus y1, and then I'm going to put my y's in parentheses. And on the bottom half, x2 minus x1 in parentheses. So these letters and numbers will make sense here in a moment. This is the formula for finding slope if we don't have a line. So this is finding slope from coordinates. We're going to use coordinates to find slope now. So here's what I'm going to do. I am, under this, going to pull this little worksheet back up. And let's use the points from the lines that we just found slope for. So on number 1, what is the coordinate of this very first point here? What's my x value? Let's see. I'm going to trace until I hit the x-axis.
It's a 0.
This point right here.
Okay.
Go down to, what's this number?
-3.
-3, right? Guys, it might look a little bit weirder because I've got all this markings all over my paper. But let me grab a blank one. That's probably throwing us off. Okay, here, let's look at this. Let's name this point. What is our x value? Where does it line up with the x-axis? -3. And what's our y value? 5. Good. So we have -3, 5. And how about this coordinate?
0, 1.
0, 1. Perfect. So we're going to use these 2 points. And we're going to find slope. Now, don't worry about writing everything that I say right now. I'm going to show you the process first. Feel free to not be stressed about writing this yet. We're going to have a bunch of examples that you can write. But I think sometimes it's good to just watch the process happen. You can kind of soak it in, and then I'll have you guys follow along with me. So we might have a problem that looks like this. I might say, find, and don't worry about writing this yet. I will give you lots of time to in a little bit here. Find the slope of the line that passes through the given points. This is how this question will be worded. So, for example, we'll have -3, 5, and 0, 1. So here's our first example. If I wanted to find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points, here's what I need to do. I want to use this formula here. I have y2, y1, x2, x1. What does that mean? I'm going to show you real quick. So in a coordinate, these are 2 coordinates here. We have 2 different values in each coordinate. There's an x value and a y value. So the first thing I will always do is I will start by labeling my x's and my y's. I have an x here. I have an x here. I have a y here, and I have a y here. So I have 2 x's and I have 2 y's. Then I would decide which one should I name x1, y1? Which one should I name x2, y2? I'm just naming them to keep them separated and organized. So it doesn't matter which you do, you will get the same answer, whether you make the first coordinate 1 or the second coordinate 1. I'm going to start just in order and call this x1 and this is y1. My 1's go together. My 2's will go together as well. The second coordinate, I've got x2 and y2. So all I've done so far is label my coordinates, saying that this is my x1, this is my y1. This is my x2, this is my y2. Now I'm going to rewrite this formula, and I am going to leave blank spaces instead of writing y2 and y1, x2 and x1. And we're going to plug some numbers in. So stay with me. Here's what we're doing. I am going to write m equals, I have y2 minus y1, here's my first one, over x2 minus x1. So all I did is I rewrote this formula, but instead of writing x and y, I just gave myself blank spaces to plug numbers in. So now here's the part where I'm going to have you tell me some things. If in my formula, the top part of my formula, I need y2 first, what number should I plug in for y2?
1.
1. Good, right here. I already labeled y2 is 1. So I'm going to write that in. So I have y2 minus y1. So I already plugged in y2. What should I plug in for y1? 5. Good. So I've got 5, and I know that because that's what I chose. Okay? Now let's plug in x values. I need x2 to come first. So what's my x2? 0. Then I need x1. What's my x1?
-3.
-3. Okay. So I've plugged all my numbers in. I have 1 minus 5 over 0 minus -3. Now, this is different from 0 minus 3. If you guys can remember all the way back to if you had pre-algebra with me, you might recall this. If you did not, and this is the first math class you've taken in years and years and years, this might be a new thing for you, and that's okay. Does anyone remember what does it mean whenever I have minus a negative number? It turns into a plus sign. These two minuses, just like when we multiply, they cancel each other out. So if I do 0 minus -3, it's the same thing as I take these negatives and it's like I'm stacking them on top of each other. It turns into 0 plus 3. Okay? So let's look at all of these. Let's start with the top. What is 1 minus 5? 1 minus 5 is 4. Positive 4 or negative 4? Negative 4. Good. And what is 0 minus -3 or 0 plus 3? 3. It's just positive 3. And that's our slope. -4 over 3. And if we look back to our first problem, that's what we got for our answer. It works. -4 over 3. We got the same answer. All we had to do was plug some numbers in. This looks terrifying, but it's really not so bad when we get comfortable with it. So this would be our slope. Now, before we move on, I feel like I can sense it in the room. Who is extremely uncomfortable with that minus negative or knowing that this was a -4 instead of positive? Is anybody like that? Doesn't make sense to me. Okay, thank you for being honest. Let's talk about that for a minute. So we're gonna run all the way back to pre-algebra. We're going to do like a little mini lesson here. So I'm going to grab a separate little note. We're going to pull it to the side. So this is unrelated. You don't have to write it, but if it's something that helps you, you are more than welcome to. That was a quick review of adding and subtracting negative numbers. So I'm going to start by drawing a number line. And I have 0 in the middle. On the right side of 0, do I have positive or negatives? Positives. So I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as many as I want to. Now on the other side of 0, what kind of numbers do we have there? Negative numbers. Okay, so -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, we could keep going. Now I want us to notice something. On our number line, this is the way that numbers behave. It's like a law of math. We have our positive numbers to the right, our negative numbers to the left, and our 0 is not positive or negative. 0 is a special number. There's no such thing as -0. There's no such thing as positive 0. 0 is just 0. It's its own category. Now, from 0, this middle point of the infinite numbers that exist, you'll notice that negative numbers behave the exact opposite way that positive numbers do. I go up 1 or over 1 to the right, I get +1. To get -1, I do the opposite. I go over 1 to the left, and I get -1. So if I am adding a positive number, I move to the right where my numbers get bigger, right? If I subtract, I move to the left where my numbers get smaller. So for example, let's look at this 1 minus 5. We're going to see how we got -4 there. If 1 is my starting number, 2 minutes. If 1 is my starting number and I take away 5, subtract 5, should I move in 5 spaces to the right or 5 spaces to the left?
To the left.
To the left. So I go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And look where we land. At -4. So that's how we got our -4 there. Now let's think about this 0 minus -3. This is a really confusing concept, but it makes sense if we think of the word negative as being the same thing as the word opposite. Okay, so we are finding 0 minus -3. Let's start with just looking at 0 minus +3. If I were to start at 0 and I wanted to take away 3, I'm subtracting a +3. Would I move to the right or would I move to the left to do 0 minus 3? To the left, good. I would go from 0 back 1, 2, 3, and I would get -3 for 0 minus 3. But we're doing 0 minus -3. So what this tells us is when we subtract, we normally go to the left, but since we're subtracting the opposite amount, it flips our direction. Negatives are funky. They tell us to do the opposite thing. If I have -3, I go to the left. If I have minus -3, I go to the right. 2, 3. I end up with +3. This is a rule of math. It doesn't feel comfortable, but it is the way that things are in math. we have two minuses here. It's like they turn into a plus. We get positive 3. Now, when in doubt, you can always type this in your calculator. I will always allow calculators. If I were to do 1 minus 5, I get negative 4. If I do 0 minus negative 3, I get positive 3. So, again, when in doubt, use your calculator. These things are amazing. They will never do you wrong unless you type it in wrong. Okay? But I hope that clarifies a little bit, or at least gives a little idea of what's happening when we subtract a negative. It's something that's uncomfortable. Just as a rule of thumb, check it on your calculator. You'll get the right numbers. Okay. I see confused faces. Tell me, what's got you lost? Anybody that wants to share? Because whatever you're confused about, I bet you a bunch of other people in the room are thinking the same thing and don't want to say it.
About all of it right now.
All of it. Okay. Who else feels that way? We all feeling a little confused. This is tricky stuff. I honestly think that the basics of math are harder than any complex subject of math that you will ever get to. And it's always the positive and negative numbers. Adding negative numbers is so difficult to grasp.
What is the, I missed a little bit of it. The x1, y1, what?
Okay,
What is
so
that?
you missed this part. That's okay. We're about to go over this a bunch today. So I just gave you a brand new thing you've never seen before. That's why you don't get it. I gave you a formula that we use to find slope whenever we don't have a line. It's just whenever they give us 2 points. So what we did is we just took the coordinates from number 1 on our do now. And I just found that I had negative 3, 5 and 0, 1. And then we started by labeling our x and our y. I said that my first coordinate, I would say that this is x1, this is y1. My second coordinate is x2, and this is y2. It actually doesn't matter which order you put these in. And let me show you how that doesn't matter. Let's plug this in one more time, but let's swap them. Let's swap them just to show that it still works. I'm going to write the same coordinates, but I'm going to label them differently this time. 0, 1, negative 3, 5. This is the same line. Let's label our x's and our y's. So the x value comes first. I have x as 0 here, and then I have an x that is negative 3. Then I have y that is 1 and y that is 5.
Do we always put the x1, y1, and x2, y2 together?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That is the only thing that you do have to have together is I couldn't say this is x1 and this is y1. My x1 and y1 have to be on the same coordinate,
Okay.
just like x2 and y2. No, that's a great question because that would change your answer. But deciding which coordinate is 1 and which is 2, that won't change it. So here's the other way. Let's say I flip-flopped them. And now I'm going to write my formula, but instead of my x1, y1, all of that, I'm going to give myself blank spaces to put numbers in. So we will write m equals, I draw a line, and I know here I'm going to do something minus something, and down here another something minus something. And I guess at this point you don't necessarily have to do those outer parentheses. If drawing more parentheses makes it feel more confusing, don't worry about that part. Let's think about this now. y2 is the first value I need to put in my formula. What number did I label as y2 over here?
5.
5. So I'm going to write 5. Okay. And what did I label as y1? 1. Good.
I think we're just kind of mixing up the numbers now.
Yeah. Oh wait, I don't know why I'm doing that in red. We're still blue. Okay. So now the bottom, I've got x2 minus x1. Let's see. What is x2?
-3.
Good. -3. What's x1?
0.
0. Okay. So once we have our numbers plugged in, we just have to solve the top and the bottom. So the top, we have 5 minus 1. What is 5 minus 1?
4.
4, positive 4. The bottom, I have -3 minus 0. What's that? -3. Now, this might look like a different answer, but it's not. We have one positive number and one negative number. We have one negative number and one positive number. If I have a positive divided by a negative, that means my overall number here is a negative number. Same as above. So whenever I am doing my slope, I can either write this as 4 over -3 or -4 over +3. Both are the same. They are the same. I can show you how that would be the same as well if that would help. If I have, let's write the difference. We have -4 over 3 or +4 over -3. So -4 over 3. If I were to start here, my rise is -4. I go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3. That slope works. That works. Now, let's say I start from this point again. My rise is +4. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. My run is -3. Since my run's negative, I got to go to the left. Oh, it still falls on my line. So it's the same. It's just flip-flopped. And hopefully that helps a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. So here's me showing you this. I wanted to just introduce it to you before we take a little break. Okay. I'm going to let y'all take a break. And when we come back, we will do a bunch of practice with this. Okay. We're going to feel real good about this before next week. So if you're looking at this, it looks overwhelming. It is a little overwhelming at first. No worries. That feeling will dissipate soon. Okay. So it is 10:13 right now. Let's take until be back no later than 10:40. We might try to start a little closer to 10:35-ish. But for sure by 10:40. Okay. So I'm gonna pause our video there. You guys do what you need to do to stretch your legs, and we will be back after break. Okay, we are back from our break. And we are going to start another page of notes. So even if you haven't written any of this down, that's okay. We're going to rewrite the formula on the next page, and we're going to do a bunch of practice together. So let's start by, I'm going to label this paper here. Unit 2 is the second page of the notes given you today. Page 2 and page 18. So I'm going to copy down the slope formula for us again, just so we have it on the top of our page. We've got slope equals 2 minus y1 x2 minus x1. Here's our formula again. I'm going to continue giving us coordinates from our do now. So on number 2 on the do now, we have the coordinates -3, 0, and 2, 5. Give you a few simple steps to follow. Using this formula, we're always going to be given 2 coordinates. And the first step I will always tell you to do is to label your x's and y's. Once we have them labeled, we just plug the values into the formula. So plug x/y values into slope formula. And from there, we just solve the top and the bottom. And slope. There's some steps you can follow. So using this formula, using these 3 steps, let's start with step 1, labeling our x's and y's again. And we'll label our x's first. Which numbers in these coordinates are my x values?
-3,
Mm-hmm.
2.
-3
I mean 2. I'm sorry.
and 2. You're right. That's perfect. Okay, so what are my y values then?
0 and 5.
0 and 5. Good. And then I'm just going to label them 1 and 2 in order. My first coordinate will be x1, y1. The second coordinate will be x2, y2. So now we need to just plug these numbers in to our formula. So feels confident enough to guide me through what I need to write in each space for my formula? Does anyone think they can guide me through?
I'll try.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny. So I'm finding my slope. I'll go ahead and write slope equals. What goes first?
Well, the y2 is gonna go.
Perfect. So I'm going to write y2. What's that?
Gonna be number 5.
5.
Gonna be the 0 for the y1.
Good. 5 and 0. And what goes in between 5 and 0? Minus. We have y2 minus y1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind was.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We're just looking at the formula here. Okay, so I've got my y's plugged in.
And then the next one's gonna be x2,
And what number?
which is gonna be 2.
2. Perfect.
And then the next one is gonna be the x1, which is a -3.
Perfect. So I've got 2 minus -3. Okay. So, is there anything that we immediately notice about our slope?
It's a 2 minus -3.
Yes.
So it flip flops it.
Okay, so what does 2 minus -3 turn into?
2 plus -3.
So if I change
2 minus 3.
if I change one of my symbols, I gotta change both of them, right? These two minus signs are gonna come together, and what does it become? Just a plus, a positive. So remember, if I have two minuses besides each other like this, I've got 2 minus -3. We can just turn it into 2 plus 3. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you can always check on your calculator. 2 minus -3. And we should get 5. So let's solve this out. So how do I solve the top? 5 minus 0, what is that? 5. And 2 minus -3, or 2 plus 3 is 5. Can we simplify?
Yeah.
Yes. What's our simplified slope? 1 over 1. That was our points from number 2 on the do now. And that was our slope. We did it correctly. Good. Okay. All right. Let's do another 1 or 2 more together. And then I'm going to have you guys try some on your own and see how we do. So let's see. Before I start working out another one, do we have any questions about this one we just did here? Does everybody see where we got our answer from? Let's go ahead, and this is going to be the coordinate from number 3 on our do now. I have 2, 2, 3, 5. Okay. So I want to find slope. What should I do first?
X and Y.
Good. Let's label our X's and our Y's. X1, X2. Go ahead and just do the 1s and the 2s all at the same time. Got Y1, Y2. Okay. So I have my X's and Y's labeled. Where do I go next?
Slope.
Yes. We're going to find the slope. We're going to plug these in to that formula at the top. So we're going to write, you don't have to write the word slope out every time. We can also use M equals. Okay. let's give ourselves blanks this time. This time I'm just gonna write a negative or a minus sign on top because I know I'm gonna subtract two numbers. And then again on the bottom, minus. I know I'm gonna plug in my y's and my x's. So, what do I do next?
First one's gonna be little y2.
Mhm,
That's gonna be
y2.
5.
5, good.
And the y1's gonna be a 2.
Perfect. Y2 is 5 minus y1 is 2. And what next?
Second one's gonna be x2, which is 3.
Perfect. 3.
And it's gonna be the 2.
Perfect. Next one is 2. So, y2 minus y1, 5 minus 2, x2 minus x1, 3 minus 2. Okay, so what do I do next?
Well, don't right?
Mm-hmm.
5 from 2?
Yeah.
4 from 5?
Yeah, so 5 minus 2 is 3. Now what?
And 3 minus 2.
Good. 3 minus 2 is
1.
1. That's it. That's your answer. Is your answer. And if we look at number 3 on our do now, that's the slope we got. 3/1. It's correct. We did it right. Awesome. Okay. Do you guys want to go through one more together?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you always subtract the y2 from the y1, or can it?
Can it be
I got-
y1 minus y2?
Yeah.
Yes,
I got it
actually.
flip-flopped is what I did.
Actually, yes, you can do y1 minus y2. So that's a great question, and let's address this with everyone. So what Amanda just asked is, can I instead do y1 minus y2 and x1 minus x2? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you did. You actually labeled it y2 first, so I didn't pay attention to that part.
Yes, and that's okay. That's okay. The only thing that matters when we use this formula is that we are being consistent. If I put y1 first, I got to put x1 first. If I do
Okay.
y2 first, I got to do x2 first. And honestly, now this is the second time around I've taught Algebra 1. Every time I've done it so far now, I get that same question. And the way I was taught was with the 2 first, so I write it this way out of habit, I guess. But I wonder if it would be less confusing to teach it the 1 first. I don't know. Either way, you can do it both ways as long as it's consistent and your 1s come from the same coordinate and your 2s come from the same coordinate.
Yeah, because I noticed that I would have got negative numbers if I would have flip-flopped it.
Yes. So
So-
here, let's work out the other way. What if I did 2 minus 5 over 2 minus 3? Is that what you had written?
I actually had 2 minus 3 over 2 minus 5.
Oh, okay. So that wouldn't work just because it looks like you put your x's on top. The y values have to be on top. Because if we think about it, our slope is rise over run. Our rise is telling us how far up or down. The y-axis goes up and down. It's the difference in the y value. And then the run is how far left or right. The run is on the bottom. The x's go left to right. The x's are on the bottom. Okay, good. Good. Yeah, so those are the important parts, is that your 1s and 2s are in the same place, and that your y's, they have to be on top. Your x's have to be on bottom. Okay. Any other questions? Let's go through one more together. Let's do, this would be number 4 on our do now worksheet. Our points are, let's see, -5, 5, and -4, -5. What should I do first?
Put our X's and Y's.
Yes, let's label our X's and Y's. X1, X2, y2. What should I do next?
Go to the y2, which is -5.
Mhm.
Which is 5.
Let's
Negative.
Yes, it is -5. That's okay. So y2 is -5 and
Over. -5 again.
okay, so I have -5, and don't forget we're doing minus, and then y1 is 5. So I have -5 minus 5 over
-4.
-4
-5.
-4 minus -5. That I know is tricky, especially when we have negative numbers, is just remembering that in this formula, we're always subtracting our two values. So don't forget to put the minus sign, even if you have a negative number, like our x1 is -5, don't just write -4 minus 5, -4 minus -5. Okay. Does everybody see where we got all these numbers from so far? Okay, what do I do now?
-5 minus 5.
Okay, what's -5?
-10.
Yes, -5 minus 5 is -10. Ooh. So, did anybody look at this and think it would be 0? Everybody's okay with this being -10? Okay, awesome. So we have -10. Now, -4 minus -5.
1.
Let's see.
Take it, plus it.
Plus it. Good. That's a plus now. And that is going to give us 1.
Yeah,
You're
we got that on
right.
the calculator, yeah.
Perfect. -10 over 1. That's our slope. That's our slope. And if we look at our problem on the do now, that's right. Number 4 was -10 over 1. Awesome. Okay. So we have run through, I believe that makes about 4 examples now. Can I give you some to try on your own, or do we want one more? You guys want to try it? I think y'all can do it. Okay, here's what I'm going to have you do. I am going to list out some coordinates for you, and I'll set a little timer. We'll come back, we'll look at them together while you work on these. If you need help, I'm going to come around and be there to help if you need it. Let's see.
Miss Taylor,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go because my stomach's cutting up.
That's okay, Jenny. Do what you got to do.
Sorry.
Nope, no problem. I hope you feel better.
Yeah, it just,
Hmm.
hope I ain't get what everybody.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll go home and look at this.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to find the slope of the line that goes through. Let's do number 5 on the do now. Our points were -6, +6, and +6, -6. Then that's one. Number 6 on the do now. Have 1, 3, and 5. I'll just give you one more for good measure. It's okay if you don't finish all 3 or quite get to it. We'll do this third one is random. I have no idea what the answer will be. Okay, so there are 3 sets of coordinates, and I want you to find the slope of the line that goes through those. I will pause this. I'm going to set a little timer. I want you to try these on your own. So, for the first one, what are some of the slopes you guys got? I'm going to see if we got different answers. You can just shout them out.
Yeah. -12/7.
-12/7.
-12/12.
Okay, -12/12. Anything else? Just those two?
Ultimately, I got -1/1.
-1/1 simplified, which would be the same as -12/12. Okay, well, let's work this out and see which slope is right. So, what should we do first?
Label our X and Y.
Yes, let's label our X's and our Y's. Call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, where do we go from there?
Make our slope.
Make our slope. So we're plugging in our values here. So I have m equals, and I'm going to give myself empty parentheses with minus in the middle. Just so I don't forget we're subtracting. And what do I put in these empty slots?
-6, take away 6.
Good. So y2 is -6 minus y1 is 6. So -6, take away 6.
Yeah. 6 plus.
Yes. Yes. We have, I see you already got yours simplified. We have 6 for x2 minus x1 is -6, which Kiana saw that there were 2 negatives, or a minus, a negative, 2 minuses, and that turns into a plus. So we have -6 minus 6 and 6 plus 6. Let's see. So let's do our top one first. What's -6 minus 6? -12. And there's another trick we can do here too. Adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting. So instead of -6, I could think of this as -6 plus -6, which might feel easier to see that it's -12. 6 plus 6 is 12, but it's negative. Okay, so we have -12 on top, and then 6 plus 6 is 12, positive 12. Okay, so -12 over positive 12, that is our correct slope. And what does it simplify to?
1.
Oh, 1, is it negative or positive?
-1. my bad.
-1. No, you're good. That's perfect. So this should be our answer. Now I'm curious if you got the 7. Do you see how you got 7?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm curious just because it'll hopefully help me be able to recognize what mistakes can happen. Would you tell me where you got the 7 from? Oh, you were looking at your X a second. That's okay. That's okay. So you didn't get that number. Okay, makes sense. Good, you got it right. Awesome. Okay. Any questions about this first one? Y'all got this one? Okay, all right. Let's look at the second one now. I have 1, 3 and 2, 5. What are the answers we got for slope?
I got -2 over -1.
-2 over -1. Okay, then 1 over 1. What else? Positive 2 over 1.
And a positive.
Okay, perfect. Now, let me ask this real quick. Amanda, did you say -2 over -1?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. There we go. Any other answers besides -2 over 1, 1 over 1, and 2 over 1? Everybody got one of these? Okay, let's see which one is right. We'll label our X's and our Y's. Okay, and we will plug our numbers in. So what goes first?
5.
5, that's my y2 minus 3. Good. And now I need x2 minus x1. So 2 and 1. Good. I hear somebody having a moment. What did you discover? Did somebody just discover they messed something
I
up?
don't know, like the -2, -1, wouldn't that change it to a positive?
Yes, it would.
Okay,
So that's still right. That's good. It just wouldn't be considered simplified. Okay, so 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 over 1. Good. Now, I'm guessing, did you, Amanda, do 3 minus 5 and 1 minus 2?
What I'm doing is I'm writing my x2 in the first coordinates, and then my 2's in the first coordinates and my 1's in the second coordinates.
Okay, so you're labeling
I'm
like
flip-flopping
x2,
them,
y2, x1, y1.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can do it that way. That will work every time. You'll just get the negative version of your answer that'll have to be simplified to positive. Yes.
Would it still be wrong if you divided 2 by 1 and get just a 2? Or would it be?
No, that would be correct as well. If you didn't write 2 over 1, you just wrote 2.
Yeah.
I would accept that. That's also correct. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you got the 1 over 1, do we see where we went wrong, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. No explanation needed?
No.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay, last one. Let's see. What are the slopes we got? Give me some answers.
-10 over 12.
-10 over, is it positive or -12?
Hold on. Are you asking for like the answer?
Yes, the answer.
-22.
Oh, -22.
Yes, -22.
Okay, -22. Did anyone get something different than -22?
22 over 7.
Positive 22 over 7. Okay, let's write that. 22 over 7. Any other answers? Did you get one of these? Okay.
Well, no, mine's different.
What's yours?
14. Bye. -7.
Okay, 14 over -7. So I have 3 answers so far. -22, positive 22 over 7, positive 14 over -7,
That -22 has to have a 7 underneath it.
-22 with a 7 over underneath. Okay, and then -22 over 7. Did everybody get one of these 4 answers? Did anyone get anything different?
I got both of them negative.
Okay.
Negative. And then 7 is a negative.
Okay, so -22 over -7.
Yeah. That's,
Okay, and those would end up canceling to make positive 22 over positive 7. So that's another answer that's the same as this one. I'll write that down, -22 over -7. Okay, this one, we have the most diverse set of answers here. So let's see which
Changing my
one is
answer.
right. You're changing your answer?
Yeah, negative 22/7.
Okay, negative 22/7.
I did a little math on.
That's all right. That's all right. So now we have four options. 22/7, both positive. Negative 22/-7, both negative. Negative 22/+7, one of each. And then 14 positive over -7. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to pull up another little, I'm going to put a sticky note on here because I'm almost out of paper room. And I don't want to start a whole new page. Okay, so what should I do first?
Looking at X and Y.
Let's label our X's and Y's. Good, and we're going to plug them in. So X and Y. And I will just go ahead and write out M equals, and I'll give myself sets of empty parentheses with minus in the middle like this. Okay, so we're plugging in X and Y.
Negative 10 minus 12,
Negative 10 minus 12.
and then negative 3 minus 4.
Perfect. Negative 3 minus 4. Okay. So what is negative 10 minus 12?
Negative 22.
Perfect. Negative 22. And what's negative 3 minus 4? Take away 4.
That.
Negative 7. Good. So I have negative 22 over negative 7. Should I simplify? Is there anything I can get rid of?
Your negatives.
My negatives cancel. 22/7, the numbers themselves can't be simplified, but if I have a negative divided by a negative, I can have a positive. So 22/7 is our answer. Okay, so let's see if you got something different than this. Do you see where your numbers came from in a different way? Does anyone feel comfortable sharing a mistake they made, maybe?
I got 22. Negative 22 is because on the negative 3 minus 4, I had a plus sign.
Ah.
That's where I got confused.
Okay, so you ended up seeing that it was like 3 minus 4, or negative 3 plus 4.
Yeah.
And that would have given you 1. So negative 22/1. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so we see where that came from. How about the 14? Where'd 14 come from?
Not gonna respond to that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna look at your paper later because I'm curious. Okay. Okay. All right.
So anytime you have two negatives,
Huh?
you got to be positive.
Yes. Anytime you got two negatives, they become a positive.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Now that is something that in your answers, I do need you guys to recognize. If you have negative 22 over negative 7 as your answer, you'll lose a half point for not knowing that it turns it positive. Okay, so, and obviously, if you make that little mistake, I give you chances to make corrections. A half point won't kill your grade, but it is a good thing to get in the habit of knowing. If I have a negative over a negative, it turns into a positive. Okay, do we have any questions about this as a whole? How do we feel? Good? We feel okay? Okay. Well, I have passed out your exit ticket. I'm just going to put it up on the screen for the people not here. This is your exit ticket for today. It is due on Friday. You're just going to find the slope of these two sets of coordinates. And if you finish that, you're free to go. I'm happy to grade it for you before you leave. If you want to, just show it to me at my desk, and that is it.